Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Working on a customer's trapper axe today. We just forged this one up and fitting it onto a handle, 20-inch handle. Luckily, the customer decided to go with the ferric nitrate finish on the handle. So I'm going to share that with you today. Actually, I got that from Peter Kelly, whose YouTube channel is called the Woodland Escape. He's the one who showed me this finish, and actually he gave me some of the crystals. So yeah, I've been finishing quite a few handles for tomahawks and axes using this finish, and it takes ash, which is pretty bright white wood, and puts a beautiful dark finish on it without the use of paint. Basically, I guess we're imparting some rust on the surface, or just below the surface of the wood, and yeah, it makes for a really nice handle. And the other thing you'll notice here is this palm swell detail that I've got here. Actually, I'll bring it a little closer so you can see it. So this is a real traditional way that handles would have looked, especially around here. It fits so well on your hand, and it makes it virtually impossible for the handle to slide out of your hand, even if you're working in the rain and things are wet. So yeah, I was lucky enough to get some handles from a friend. 3 of them actually he gave me, that were made by his uncle, and his uncle was what they called a timberman here in the Parry Sound area, and this handle was made by him. And this gentleman, his name is Burley Harris. He's been dead longer than I've been alive, so it's interesting to serve an apprenticeship under somebody who's passed before you were even born. But his handles are beautiful, and this one I believe is cherry, and obviously this is for a felling axe. It's quite a bit longer handle than the one I'm working on now, and certainly he left more material to make this wider, and just really beautiful craftsmanship, all done by hand. So they didn't, I've been told they didn't use sandpaper, probably because it was expensive. I'm sure they could have got it. You know, this would have been early 1900s, probably, that this was made. I guess, you know, up until the time that he passed, which was in the late 60s. This could have been made. I don't know exactly when it was made, but apparently local handle makers used to use a saw, and then probably a rasp, and then they would scrape. And to scrape today, I'm just using a razor blade, but it leaves you a really smooth finish. And you know, there's character in this. There's still, you can see lines of where he's rasped it, and you know, he took them out where you were working, or maybe this has been worn. This was used, this handle, and obviously it broke. And I noticed he liked to wedge pretty deep. The wedge is right down almost to the base of the head of the axe. Today's rule of thumb, as far as I know, is to go 2/3 down from the top of the eye, and I suppose that really depends on the shape of the eye. On mine, I tend to leave more flare on top, so I drive the drift in from the bottom, and then I drive the drift in from the top, and I drive it a little further in on the top, so that I've got a little more flared open surface. So anyways, that's just my personal preference. It seems to work well. It's really important, especially with a Hudson's Bay axe, because this height is so because this height here, relative to the width of the eye, it's short. it doesn't have as much bearing surface on the handle. So it is important that you get a very good fit. This isn't finished yet, but you can see that I'm getting bearing surface up halfway through the eye of the axe. And then from there, the axe is tapered out the opposite way. So when I drive the wedge in, you'll end up with an hourglass shape, which really holds the head secure. It's really important that you don't just drive your head onto the handle and leave a big step here. If you see an axe where the material's curled up on the handle there, chances are it's going to come loose. And the other thing I find that makes them come loose, no matter how hard you try to keep this material dry, there's some moisture in it. And if I bring this in the house, and I've wedged them before and brought them in the house, and then I've had the wood stove going in the fall or the winter, and it dries the handle out even more, and then suddenly it's come loose again. Now you're able to just tighten it down and push the wedge in a little further, but what I've come to do now is I'll make this handle fit like this. I'll drive the axe on, I'll bring this in the house and put it next to the wood stove for a day or two, and then that'll shrink this handle. Then I'll drive the head down tight, put my wedge in so everything's secure, and then I'll soak the head and the handle in linseed oil before I ship it to the customer, so that the wood is now swollen with oil and is dry of moisture, so it's unlikely to shrink. So when you're fitting the head, everything should be as dry as possible. Yeah, from experience. The same goes with tomahawks. If you leave the handle in your tomahawk all the time, it'll tend to grow and shrink with the moisture content in the air, depending on where it is. And the next thing you know, it's loose. And not only is it loose, but you end up with a shoulder here because the wood's trying to swell and it can't, because the head of your axe or tomahawk keeps it from swelling. With an axe, you don't have a choice. You've wedged it, it's staying on there. So you got to make sure this is super dry. And yeah, so this is my smallest Hudson spay. This is what I call the Trapper. This is the 20-inch handle version. I do offer it in a 16. I like the 20. I may not even, what I may do is make the 20 the standard handle going forward, and then offer the 16 as an option for those people who want to carry this in their backpack and don't want the extra handle length. But this feels so good in the hand. And of course, it's not sharpened yet. I don't sharpen my axes until the very end, because I don't want to A, get cut, and B, it's being knocked around on and off the handle, and I may drop this. There's no sense in sharpening it and then damaging the edge and having to go back and sharpening it again. So yeah, anyways, we'll get to a few more minutes scraping and maybe a little bit of sandpaper on a dowel or something in this area just to get everything smooth. And then we'll move on to the aquafortis, which I guess is a commercial name, or ferric nitrate finish on this handle. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. So that's the handle, scraped, sanded down a little bit. Like I said, there's still a few lines. You can see that this was handmade for something that is nothing like a handle you'll get at a hardware store. Bear in mind that 100 years ago, the local lumbermen swung an axe for a living, and their handles didn't look like this. So you can see the transformation between what I get from the handle maker shop. I ask him to leave this just as a square and I'll shape it. I may start asking him to leave this end just as a square as well, and just have him rough out the center section, which I then go and reduce I don't know if you can see that or not. So it's reduced in width, and it's reduced in the height, and then the palm swell is hand carved and then the head is fit by hand to get that bearing surface. And I've still got a little bit of work to do on this one, but I think what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we're going to apply the finish, or at least the first step of the finish, which is the ferric nitrite. So this is the crystals that I got from Peter Kelly, actually, and they're mixed with water, 4 to 1, and so 4 parts water, 1 part crystals. And I like to apply it with these little, I don't know what you call these. I get these from the leather goods supply that I buy my my rivets and my dye for the sheaths and overstrike protectors that I make for my axes. Yeah, these work best. I started out using a cloth. The problem with the cloth is that you tend to lose a lot of this liquid to the cloth itself. And so you just brush this on, and it's going to turn a not very attractive color, to be honest. But you just have to have some faith that this end of this process will be worthwhile. I'm getting low on this stuff. I'm going to have to order some. And if I find a supplier, like an online supplier that has it at a reasonable price, I'll post a link. And it's not an affiliate link or anything. It's just a link to help you guys find this material easier for your own projects. And I'll tell you, the first time I saw this was at Peter Kelly's, and we did a little hammer handle for a hammer that I forged for him. And the transformation was amazing. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I got to do that with my axe handles. So he was kind enough to give me a little bit to get me started. And well, I'm almost out. So we're definitely going to have to invest in some more of it. So basically just apply it to all the surfaces, let it soak in and dry. And once it's dried, we're going to apply some heat. And traditionally, the blacksmith would have held out a piece of red hot steel or iron, and the gunsmith would have actually been the one to manipulate, this is what Peter told me, be the one to manipulate the stock of the rifle or gun over top of the red hot steel in order to transform this solution on the surface of the wood and give it that color we're looking for. And that's step 1 is the application here. Step 2 is to heat the surface, which causes a reaction. And then step 3 is to add some linseed oil, and that just takes it to the next level. And I'm gonna have to find a supplier of linseed oil, hopefully something a little more local than what I've been using. But the linseed oil and beeswax I get locally from the beekeeper, and those are traditional finishes, I feel, and I've added this traditional finish to my repertoire as well. I like to do things the way they were done, and you know, we don't need any varnish or paints or dyes to color these handles. We just apply this, and a little bit goes a long way. So there's probably a few handles left in this jar still. It does eat the lid of the jar though. There we go. So we'll let that dry probably for 20 minutes or so. And make sure you get it into every little, sometimes you get a little gap, and it really shows up afterwards. Like it's a real bright spot in your work So I like to go over it here. There's still plenty in this applicator, so I'll just go over it and make sure that, see, I missed a spot right there. And fill in any spots that I've missed. And then we'll set it aside and we'll come back. I'm not going to do this with a red hot piece of iron. I'm going to cheat and I'm going to use my heat gun. But my reasoning being that I don't have to burn any coal to heat up a piece of steel, and I can just use solar power because I am off grid here in order to run my electric heat gun, which will transform this to step 2. All right, we'll be right back. All right, guys, it's been 5 seconds for you and half an hour for me. So this is now dry, and as I said, we're going to cheat and use a heat gun, but in my case, it's kind of like free energy since the sun is going to power this. And what you'll notice is an immediate darkening. And you don't want to dwell too long. I found it burns. So always keeping something in motion here and waiting for that reddish brown to develop and then moving on. The grain tends to get darker. So I guess the lines of the softer wood in the ash tend to darken more than the harder wood in the ash. And sort of similar to burning the handle with a torch would be, but in this case we're not burning anything. I think there's more of the solution soaked into that softer wood. It's more porous, and so you're getting a more dramatic transformation in those areas than you're getting in the hardwood area. So we just work our way down the handle. So I'll carry on with this, and then I'll come back once I get the whole handle done, and we'll be ready to... I'll come back once I get the whole handle done, and we'll be ready to apply some linseed oil to the handle. Normally I would do that at the very, very end, but in this case I'll do it so you can see the transformation before I've put the head on and wedged it. So there we go. That's after the application of heat. We've turned a definite reddish brown, and what I like to do now is, because this tends to raise the grain a little bit, and as I said before, the softer areas get darker. Well, they also happen to be the areas where the grain raises the most. So a little sanding will even that all out. You can leave it. It doesn't affect anything if you leave it. It just feels a little rougher in the hand. But certainly with use, the area that you're holding in your hand is going to get worn down and polished up just from the sweat in your hand and the natural oils in your skin, and the linseed oil, obviously, that we add. All right, so that's that. I'll apply some linseed oil to one of these shop towels, which I'll later use to light my fire. what I do is I go ahead at the end of the day, if I've got any of these oily rags, I'll put them in my fire pot after the fire's gone, as a place to store them. Apparently they can self-combust. I've never seen it happen personally, but in the fire pot's a pretty safe place for that to happen. So there's the dramatic transformation. It takes a rather plain looking wood like white ash and turns it to this rich mahogany finish that, well, it speaks for itself. Really was happy to hear that this customer wanted this finish so we could do this video for you today and share this process that Peter Kelly was so kind to share with me. So now I'm sharing it with you. And there'll be more application of linseed oil before this handle is finished, for sure. But what we'll do is just quickly put the head on. There it is, guys. One Hudson spade trapper on a 20-inch hand-carved handle with a Burley Harris palm swell. Chris Johnston hand-forged head. And aquafortis finish. And yeah, it's an heirloom now. It should be something that will be passed on, and you know, it's my immortality. I stamped my name on it, and maybe 100 years from now, or 50 years after I'm dead, somebody will be talking about something I made. Anyways, I hope so. Thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, like and subscribe if you haven't already and you like this kind of content, and I'll keep the videos coming. See you again soon.